Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome inside the athletic fields here at Milford High School, as Milford TV is happy to bring you coverage of Scarlet Hawks athletics. Once again, this is Tim Coet on the call, and we are here under the lights here on the Milford turf field to bring you another edition of Milford High School girls soccer. The Lady Hawks taking on a Davenport division rival in the Canton Lady Bulldogs, and it is senior night here for the Lady Hawks, an opportunity to play an evening matchup in what is a bitter cold evening here in Milford. It has been chilly conditions since we first arrived here at field level several hours ago, and Milford honoring their seniors in this matchup tonight, and a nice gesture from the Milford coaching staff, as you just saw there for that opening possession of the game. Senior Michaela Souza out on the field. She has been dealing with injuries throughout this season, but an opportunity to make the start here tonight. And out there for the opening kickoff before heading out to the sidelines. It was an all-senior starting lineup for Milford here tonight, with Souza along with Lily Borst, Bianca Guerrero, Hannah Martin, Sienna Pierce, Cassie Probert, Olivia Sullivan, Sarah Weber, Madeline Boyle, Annie Flanagan, and Olivia Marshall. As Milford comes into this matchup with an overall record of 5-10-0, they are in fourth place position in the Davenport standings. Canton in third place at 7-6-2 overall on the year. Milford an opportunity with 2 games left on their schedule, if they can come away with victories in both, to outdo their final record from a season ago. And Milford will look to attack from right to left across your screens here in the first half, and part of the reason this girls team is playing as late into the evening as they are is we ended up seeing a thrilling conclusion to the boys soccer teams from these two schools earlier today. That game underway earlier this afternoon, finishing up maybe about a half an hour ago, and Milford was able to just barely eke out a victory over Canton in an epic back and forth battle, as the Lady Bulldogs here deliver a couple of shots in on Olivia Marshall, and the third one ends up as the charm for the Lady Bulldogs, as just 2 minutes into this action, they're able to take a 1-0 lead. I believe that was Morgan McCabe, the scorer for the Lady Bulldogs. And that one just a product of a solid effort for Canton in front of the net, just hammering away. A couple of good saves for Marshall as she went down to the turf, but that third attempt ended up finding the back of the net, so very quickly Canton able to strike for the first goal here. It's about 2.5 minutes in. Milford hoping that they can find the answer. Canton was able to defeat Milford in their matchup earlier on the season. That ended up being a 4-0 victory for Canton on their home field. And the Lady Bulldogs quickly now accelerate back the other way. And back deep to retrieve this one is Catherine Madden. But Canton now trying to center it up yet again. The ball deflects back to the near sideline where Sienna Pierce intercepts. Madden tries to drift it back upfield, but Canton recovers. That centering pass ended up deflecting off the back of the goal scorer from just a moment ago. McCabe now has it taken away. Madden can't quite get the clear. And now sent along by Juliana France. And good to see Juliana out there. Of course, our first couple of matches that we brought to you for this girls soccer team right at the end of the month of September were played without the services of Juliana France on, you might recall, was a controversial red card that she received in a road matchup. Ended up having to deal with a 2-game sit down as a result of that red card per league rules, and so ended up being missing for matches against Stoughton and Oliver Ames earlier this season. Milford was able to win their first game of the season against Stoughton. And now another good chance for Canton, that one drifting right up over the head before Olivia Marshall was able to get to it. And Ashley Starks now getting into the action there. Ashley Starks also missed a handful of games earlier this season, trying to work her way back from an ankle injury that she suffered right in one of Milford's final preseason scrimmages. Now play up ahead for number 13, Olivia Sullivan. And Morgan McCabe now back up ahead with it for the Lady Bulldogs. She has been quite a factor here in these opening 5 minutes. Canton keeps it in just on their attacking side of the field, and Ashley Starks with a bit of a shove from behind. Starks has never shied away from contact as this kick comes all the way in to the keeper, and Marshall able to collapse in on top of it. But Starks a physical player. She brings a lot of energy. That was certainly something that Milford was missing in those early games of the season. Down into the far corner, Milford able to deflect Hannah Martin now. Had it briefly. Now Starks will try to track it back. They'll send it now into the box. Madeline Boyle all the way back to get it. Still in the opening 10 minutes of play of this first half. Temperature down to an even 40 degrees, but with the wind, it feels much cooler than that. It feels like temperature of 34 degrees for these players to deal with. And up ahead, just out of the reach of Sullivan. It'll stay with Milford. A quick goal just 2.5 minutes in for the Lady Bulldogs has given them a 1-0 lead. Taking a look at some of the recent meetings between these teams over the seasons. Which we'll do so after this play here. A nice steal for Pierce, and now Milford will move it along. Out of the reach of Sullivan, now here's France. It'll be Milford ball, and now Pierce will toss it in on Milford's attacking side. Sends it back to Madden. And now out of the reach of Starks, and Canton will push it back downfield. Milford and Canton ended up with a 3-3 draw in the first of their 2 meetings last season, and then Canton with a 3-0 win in their meeting at Canton High School. Last time Milford was able to come away with a victory against the Lady Bulldogs was back during the 2016 season, as this ball drifts wide to the right of the Milford net. In 2016, Milford able to erupt for 6 goals in a 6-3 win over Canton here on their home field. Kick sent out by Boyle, pushed along, playable for Hannah Martin, who then gets knocked down. No whistle. She'll jump right back into the play, trying to track this ball towards the far sideline now. It's Cassie Probert. Martin, Probert, Boyle, and Juliana France, the captains of this year's Scarlet Hawks team. I'll give you some of the scoring numbers for this Milford offense in terms of individual players a little bit later on. Overall, as a team, Milford coming in having scored 18 total goals on the year. They've allowed a total of 36 goals to their opponents. Canton, meanwhile, their offense has had some more success on the season. They have scored a total of 45 goals. That's third most in the Davenport. As the Foxborough Lady Warriors have had an impressive offensive attack all season long. 58 goals scored, which is tied with King Philip for the most in all of the Hockomock League. Now the turnaround shot, and that is going to drift just past the fingertips of Olivia Marshall. Good for the second goal of the game for the Lady Bulldogs. That's the sophomore, Eliza Delezia. And that's going to make it a 2-0 lead for the Canton Lady Bulldogs here with 29-21 still to go in the first half. Delezia, I believe, is the correct pronunciation of the goal scorer there, so my apologies. And so Milford trying to regroup here after allowing a couple of early goals in this first half. Still 28 minutes and change to go in this first half, so plenty of time to turn things around. It's been a good stretch for Milford over their last two games. Most recently, a 2-0 win at Sharon, which was just a little over 24 hours ago. That game was supposed to be played on Tuesday. But storms passing through the Sharon area in the afternoon forced that game to be postponed. So Milford traveling to Sharon yesterday and right back at it here today. But a 2-0 win, and that was coming off of a 5-1 victory over Stoughton back on October 22nd. So a couple of road wins back-to-back for Milford, trying to make it 3 straight. But if they are to accomplish that, they'll have to come from behind in this one, down 2-0 early. Canton, meanwhile, riding a streak in which they've taken points in their last 4 straight. They battled to a 1-1 draw against North Attleboro in their most recent game, and prior to that, 3 big offensive explosion victories: 6-1 over Sharon, 8-2 over Stoughton, and then a 5-0 win over Attleboro. So this team's been putting up goals with regularity in this late second half push. Now deflected back out. It looked like good position for Lauren Fitzpatrick, the senior for Canton, but Milford able to jar the ball loose, and now Pierce will shoot it up the near sideline, and racing in for that one was Christina Shirelli, but they're just a moment too late. And now that ball gets by Annie Flanagan. Alyssa Monahan tracking it to the far sideline. The toss in now with 26-26 on the first half clock. already seen Canton cycle through some substitutions. They'll send another in here as Juliana Agniti will check into the game. She will replace Lauren McCabe. Canton with some fans in attendance. And some of the crowd that was here for the boys game earlier sticking around. A lot of the parents of these seniors sticking around as well after they were part of the pregame celebration. A lot of the families and parents coming out to be recognized before the game. Now Juliana France stepping up to try to play that one, but Canton pushes it back in. Now here's Morgan McCabe. Loops one towards the left post, and that one kicks out of play. All the players not involved in this game right now on the two benches with coats and sweatshirts and blankets on hand trying to brave these cold conditions. Canton continuing to see the bulk of the action on their attacking side of the field. Milford trying to do something to shift momentum around. A little hard contact there as Sarah Collins, a senior for Canton, ends up down. She draws the whistle. Milford playing out the final stretch of their regular season in the inaugural year for Lou Colabello at the helm of this program, looking to build this team back into a playoff contender. 5 wins and counting on the season here in 2018. Canton, on the other hand, their head coach, Kate Howarth, looking to bring her program right back to the postseason. Canton ended up reaching the first round of the Division II South playoffs last year after accumulating a 10-6-2 record in the regular season. They ended up finishing second in the Davenport last year to North Attleboro. Right now, everyone in the Davenport looking up at Foxborough, who is 13-0-3 overall on the season. North Attleboro in second place position at 10-2-4, and then it's Canton at 7-6-2. So that trio having a lot of success this year. And just as we've seen on the boys' side, we expect to see a heavy contingent of Hockomock League teams in the playoffs for girls soccer. Should see 4 of the 6 Kelly Rex teams in, at least 3 teams from the Davenport as well. Pass finds Juliana France. She will move it on to Pierce. Pierce accelerates. A good move around one defender, but help arrives for Canton, pushing the ball back to center. And then brought in deep before Boyle plays it to Starks, who moves it back to Pierce, now over the middle of the field for Shirelli. Coming down close to 20 minutes left to go in this first half. Canton looking comfortable here early. Canton with a lot of upperclassmen talent on their team, but they have several sophomores and a couple of freshmen mixed into this roster too, and in particular, one of those sophomores, Olivia Rodman, was labeled as one of the players to watch coming into this season. She had a fantastic freshman year. Ended up leading the team with 14 goals and also had 7 assists last year. So you can watch out for Rodman, number 10. Pierce again trying to advance that ball, but Canton's defense able to intercept. Marshall with a short kick, and Morgan McCabe is able to find it. And Boyle able to clear it out. Olivia Sullivan stepping into the play and now pushed back ahead by the Lady Bulldogs. And now blasted in from long range, and that time Marshall was able to read it, deflects the ball out of play. So we'll see the corner kick chance for Canton here with 19:43 left in the first half. Over the head of Rodman. And that will drift back to the corner. And more substitutions for the Lady Bulldogs, so trying to keep fresh bodies out there, give people a chance to get back to the sideline and try to get warm. The second corner kick chance now for Canton. Pops up and out of play. That looked to be Sarah Collins with the header chance, but pops up over the net and out of play. And meanwhile, looks like timeout is called for on the field, stopping the clock with just under 19 minutes left to go. It has been all Canton so far in this first half. They take a 2-0 lead on Milford. We'll pause for the timeout as well as you enjoy coverage of Milford High School athletics right here on Milford TV. (18 minutes and 48 seconds to go as we resume out of the timeout. Canton leading this Davenport Division girls soccer matchup 2-0. Goals from Morgan McCabe and Eliza De Letizia so far here in the first half. Milford talking things over with their head coach, trying to shake things up. That wind continuing to howl out there. You can see the flags all 4 corners of the field fully extended as now Olivia Sullivan tries to battle through. The keeper coming out to make the stop, and Sullivan colliding with the keeper for Canton, the senior Brianna Murphy. Olivia Sullivan with 3 goals on the season. It's tied for 3rd most on the team, making a bid there. Trying to sneak behind the defense. This first half clock ticks down to 17 minutes to go as Canton tries to go back on the offensive. The ball knocked away from McCabe. Starks now trying to get around to defender. And now sent back in by Liana Brun. Starks Pushes it to the far sideline and out. That one deflecting off of Canton on the way out. This one out of play, and this time it will be the Lady Bulldogs who toss back in. Canton now calmly plays it back to their defense. Now back across midfield, and Madden will dump it back in. Sullivan just out of her reach. Juliana France flies in to play it. And France sending it back in the direction of Starks. Starks now has to play it back to the D line. And Boyle now tripped up. Starks trying to give Milford a little room to work with on the attacking side. And Morgan McCabe, meanwhile, continues to be all over the action for Canton. She's had a good half of play so far, including the opening score. Now to the corner where that will roll out of play with now just under 15 minutes to go in the half, and it'll be Boyle to release this kick back downfield against the wind. That ball just out of the reach of Starks. Now she has another chance to settle it. Back to the D for the Lady Bulldogs before pushing it across midfield. Now back and forth with now an even 14 minutes until the break. Players on the bench trying to rally the troops out on the field for the Lady Hawks. And now trouble brewing again for Milford, and a good play from the keeper, Olivia Marshall, as she gets the hands on that to make the save and deflects out of play for what will be another corner kick chance in this half for Canton. Milford gets a good deflection all the way out to Sullivan. Eventually this ball will get sent back in for Canton after collecting it from far out of play and then right back out again with 12.5 minutes to go. And now Canton pops it up out of play behind the Milford goal. Now Boyle's kick right on target to Sullivan. And now Pierce back over the middle, but Canton there again. That was Alexa Maffio. Brought back in deep by Sarah Collins, and then fires it in on net, and another save made by Marshall. She's had her hands full in this half. She's made some good plays. It has allowed the 2 goals that are the difference in the game right now. Canton scoring 2 within the first 11 minutes. It's quieted down since, and again, good play in net for Marshall, part of that. Madden sending it back into Boyle, and Boyle now finding Captain Cassie Probert. And now France up ahead, trying to get that one to Sullivan in stride. France breaking up the progress of Juliana Agniti. Now again, Milford trying to find some way to get this ball upfield to get their offense going. It's been a solid defensive effort over these first 30 minutes for the Lady Bulldogs. Very few, if any, mistakes. And Probert ends up getting taken down, no call. And a quick break as Canton cycles through more personnel as we go under the 10-minute mark. Now Canton pushing the pace again. Melissa Monahan with some real tough play defensively, keeping her position. Milford fans looking for something to cheer for here over the last 8.5 minutes of this first half action on senior night in Milford. Juliana France with a deep ball. Sullivan trying to get there. She overran it. Shirelli there as well. Now Milford trying to fight to keep it alive on their attacking side of the field. Annie Flanagan was in the vicinity. Now Probert will dump it down towards the corner. Sullivan pushes it along, but that will roll free to the keeper. Now Starks sending it back to Boyle, who pushes it back across midfield. Sullivan now tracking it. Can't get there. Yeah, Pierce gets to that one, but then it glances off her foot, out of play. 6 minutes and 50 seconds to go in the first half. Some hard contact there between Juliana France and Canton's Julia Agniti. Now Sullivan again, just a moment too late. Bruin sending that back as far as center. Now Sullivan again has one defender to beat, but that defender able to get positioning. Allie McCabe, the freshman. Three McCabes on the roster for Canton. And the clock about to dip under. 6 minutes to go as Milford will have the corner kick from the near side. Madeline Boyle will take the kick. Chance to cut into the Lady Bulldogs lead. And this one drops in right at the feet of Sienna Pierce, and the save made. And now the ball deflects all the way back out. Brianna Murphy able to make the stop as Pierce was able to get a good shot away. And the best chance Milford has had so far in the game. Trying to build on that now as again Milford's able to bring it in deep. Here's Sullivan trying to deflect it off the keeper. And now back out to center. So the best sequence by far of this half for the Lady Hawks. It continues now as Cassie Probert tracks the ball into the corner. Canton trying to break it back out. Milford keeps it alive momentarily and now sent hard out of play off of Canton. Hannah Martin will now come back into the game, replacing Olivia Sullivan, who had a close call. Now pushed out of play by Shirelli. And Canton able to bring it back across midfield. Milford dumps it back in. Pierce patiently waiting for it. But now brought ahead. Pushed back across by Flanagan. And now Martin. Now here's France. Good ball ahead to Hannah Martin, sent out of play by Alexa Maffio. Under 3.5 minutes left, time winding down. Milford trying to push one in here before the break. And Juliana France will loft this one high in the air, and a bit of a juggle by Murphy, but she's able to hang on. Kick absorbed by Juliana France. It allows Milford to take it back upfield. Here's Pierce trying to keep it in play, but just too late. Looks like a lot of the boys players have stuck around to support their counterparts here on the girls team on this senior night. The boys still celebrating their Davenport Division clinching win. Now France forced to push it back to the D as we now dip under the 2-minute mark. Ken couldn't save that one from going out of play. Milford with the toss, about a minute and a half before we hit the break. Trying to find Starks. It ends up deflecting back out. And now back in deep, racing for it is Monahan, and again that goes out of play. Milford hoping for one more trip upfield before the conclusion of this half. Boyle trying to get it started. And there it is. That is the end of this first half. So it ended up being an early flurry for Canton with goals from McCabe and Diletizia within the first 11 minutes. Play settling down from there. Milford could not get themselves on the scoreboard, so it's still a 2-0 lead for Canton as we hit intermission. And so we will step aside very briefly. Half number 2 coming up for you in just a moment here on our coverage of Milford High School girls soccer on Milford TV. Once again, we welcome you into the athletic fields here at Milford High School. Second half action now underway between the Milford girls and the Canton girls. It's been a long day of soccer action here in Milford, and if you've been with us on our live stream since we first began here earlier today with the boys, happy to have you with us as we continue on in our soccer doubleheader coverage. The boys with a 3-2 win over their Canton counterparts earlier today. And the girls now, the Lady Hawks trying to mount a second half comeback after Canton was able to jump out to a quick 2-0 lead with a pair of goals within the first 11 minutes of the first half. Now a chance here developing for Olivia Sullivan, but the senior keeper Brianna Murphy slides in to make a good stop. So taking a full look at the scoring stats for the Lady Scarlet Hawks coming into play today on October 24th. It is Juliana France, who is once again your top goal scorer on the team. She has 5 goals to go along with 5 assists on the season. Ashley Starks, despite missing time earlier this season, with the second highest goals scored on the team with 4, as Marshall gets a hand on that one to deflect it out of play. 4 goals on 2 assists for Starks. And then a couple of players with 3 goals apiece. Cassie Probert with 3 goals on 4 assists. Olivia Sullivan, 3 goals and an assist. Hannah Martin with 2 goals on the season. Sophia Wilson with a goal. And then Maddie Boyle and Sienna Pierce each with single assists apiece. After that deflection by Marshall, we'll see another corner kick for the Lady Bulldogs, and the rebound ended up deflecting to senior Julia Hamilton. And then eventually out of play, so Canton can't cash in on that opportunity here in the early stages. This was the point in the first half where Canton was able to get their offense rolling. Now Probert settles that ball down before sending it ahead for Catherine Madden. Now Juliana France steps into the play. And France, trying to go for the ball, ended up getting tangled up with the feet of Sarah Collins. Gets the whistle. Hannah Martin trying to poke that ball back across. And now France momentarily able to push it further forward, but Canton now with play back at midfield. And Probert with some good hard-nosed play against Sarah Collins. Getting tangled up with the junior captain Juliana France earlier, and now Probert. France now leaving the toss in for Catherine Madden. And Madden then sending it over the middle for Hannah Martin. Martin continuing to work and then gets dragged down. But initiating the contact with Morgan McCabe. Now that gets through Probert. Madden moves it and then gets taken down. And meanwhile, it is the Canton player that is slow to get up, and that will force a stoppage for the injury timeout. And so we will take the timeout as well with 35-21 to go here in the second half. It is still 2-0 Canton over Milford here on Milford TV. And so bad news for Canton, as that was Olivia Rodman who was injured on that last play. Ended up coming in late to try to break up the pass from Madden and was in a good deal of pain. It looked to be the right ankle. That's the injury for Rodman, and could barely put any weight on it whatsoever as she was helped to the sideline and is now being attended to by the training staff. But from the looks of it right now, it does not look good for a talented sophomore. So play carries on with 34.5 minutes to go here in the second half. Carried in deep before Milford is able to break it up. Now the pass finds Starks, Hannah Martin. And now Sullivan loops it in, trying to get it to Cassie Probert, and just a little bit too far out in front. Murphy with the kick. Starks deflects it down, and Probert will start it back up for Milford. She is guided to the sideline by Gabriella Heriveau. And Milford now tossing it back in, trying to get something organized, but Ashley Starks couldn't absorb the toss. It deflects right back out of play. And now 7 minutes into this second half. Now trouble brewing as Milford tries to get back defensively. It was a good play initially by Boyle. And now Hannah Martin whiffs on the clear. Annie Flanagan doing a good job of blocking the shot. Everything's been so smooth for Canton throughout this game. It has not left much of a window open for Milford to turn things around. And we mentioned it, not a whole lot of luck in this matchup over the years for the Lady Scarlet Hawks. In the previous 7 meetings, Milford has just 1 win. And now Probert again in a dogfight for possession. Good footwork by Juliana France. And more contact at the end of the play. And once again, it's Sarah Collins who has been unafraid to mix it up at times out there. Marshall surveying the field, sends the kick back out, but it's immediately deflected back down for Julia Hamilton. And Brianna Murphy sending the kick back out. Stark's able to deflect it back in, and now Juliana France takes a hard impact. And dangerous, as that came right around the head. And Juliana France able to pop right back up. Might have taken that hit off the shoulder, but that was dangerously close to head-to-head contact. And so the result now, the free kick chance for Madeline Boyle. Can Milford finally get on the board here with 28:38 to go in the second half? Taking a while to get the personnel situated out there on the field, and now looks like we are ready to go. The kick away for Boyle, and read well by Murphy, and she is able to make the save right into the center of the net, and Murphy able to hold on to it. And another whistle going in Milford's favor. Trying to quickly situate themselves upfield now. Boyle sending the kick deep. Martin redirects. And the keeper Murphy races out to make the stop. Unafraid to travel into the crowd to pull that one down. Milford applying a little more pressure in their attacking side here over these last few minutes. As Starks and Mia Gilmore, the sophomore, both went up for that ball. Starks ends up receiving the whistle. And so we mentioned it earlier, the offense that Canton has been putting up in their last stretch of games. $20 goals in total in their last 4 matches for the Lady Bulldogs. They were able to keep that offense rolling through the first portion of the first half, but Milford settled in since, and they've done a good job of limiting the offensive chances for Canton, but the problem is they've been unable to generate any of their own. Now Probert gets knocked down, and she is a little bit slow to get up as play continues. Trying to get the attention of the officials, and finally they do. And so, again, the clock stopped for an injury, and we will take the timeout. 2-0 Canton here with 25 minutes and 31 seconds to go in the second half here on Milford TV. And back to action after Cassie Probert was able to get back to her feet and make it to the sidelines. It's been a tough game with a lot of players going down with injuries. Olivia Rodman of Canton injured earlier in the second half, and looks as if she will not return, as she has been attended to ever since on the sidelines. And now Cassie Probert, shaken up on that last play, again was able to get to the sidelines under her own power. So a tough physical game with still 24 minutes left to go. Milford hoping for a comeback to try to earn their 6th victory of the season. Only 2 of Milford's 5 wins have come at home so far this season, with the other 3 coming on the road. They have home wins against Stoughton and also Sharon. 4 of Milford's 5 victories have come against those 2 very teams. They've swept the season series against both the Lady Knights and the Lady Eagles. Their only other win on the season came against the Taunton Lady Tigers back on September 26th. Olivia Sullivan now checking back in for Milford. And Shirelli will head to the bench. Now Boyle stepping up to make the play from the defensive line. Now left behind for Pierce. Bianca Guerrero into the game now, wearing number 10, the senior. And looks like Cassie Probert will quickly check back into the game, and taking the opportunity to keep the blanket for as long as she can before checking back in. On a night where it is a challenge to try to stay warm, and for this Milford offense, a challenge to try to get on the score sheet here with still 22 minutes left to go in the second half. They get the toss back in deep, just missing Juliana France, and now Starks will step in, and she'll deflect it out of play. Canton with 2 matches left to go after finishing up here today. They'll have their final home game on the 27th against Foxborough before traveling on the road for a non-conference game to close out the season at Concord Carlisle. Probert back into the game with the ball on her foot, pushes it in the direction of Sullivan. And now back to the midfield where Boyle will head it back in. Now Probert trying to protect. And still Milford ball as Sarah Weber tosses back into play. Now Sullivan loses control. Sullivan again staying close to the action, along with Canton's Sarah Collins. Collins again initiating contact. Ended up down on the turf briefly, gets right back up. Now Weber loses it. Boyle trying to battle against Morgan McCabe. And now Probert down again. And hard contact in front of the Canton bench meanwhile. And once again, it's Collins. Past the midway point of the second half, 19 minutes and 50 seconds to go. All the way into the corner. And Probert now pushes it out to Juliana France, who has it deflect out of play. Coach Colabello sending fresh personnel out onto the field now, but cheers for some solid play. And now a shot in quickly on Olivia Marshall, and she's able to make the stop. Not as much activity around the Milford net in the second half. Starks playing it back to Boyle and just misses connecting with Probert. France now for Probert. Can she win it back? And back upfield for Sarah Collins, and a good look perhaps for Dilatizia making a bid for her second goal of the game, but it's knocked free and out of play. And now deflected hard and out by Starks. Not a lot of willing volunteers to track down the balls out of play as the second half has gone on. Probert trying to find an angle to the near sideline. Back ahead now for Lauren Fitzpatrick, but again, out of play. Madden finding Hannah Martin, but Canton winning it right back now. Morgan McCabe for Canton trying to track it down. Milford gets there. But the Lady Hawks can't find the angle upfield. Now dumped back in. And it's Collins. Catherine Madden trying to stay close. Collins trying to center it up and now deflected back to the near sideline and out. Collins has been a solid playmaker for Canton throughout this game. And now a foot race here for Olivia Sullivan. Had to go a long way, and then Leanna Brun for Canton able to get there first. As we slowly tick down to the final 15 minutes of the second half. After 8 o'clock in the evening now, this game didn't get started until maybe about 10 till 7 after some extended celebrations from the boys team delayed our expected 6:30 start. And now this ball rolling free. Madden, a good job of getting it out of harm's way. Now Sullivan loops it in the direction of Cassie Probert, but Canton refusing to allow Milford to get the advance upfield. Now down to the foot of Juliana France, has a little space. Now the pass for Cassie Probert, racing for it, and just cannot catch up before it drifts out of play. We've had a chance to cover a lot of the Canton teams on this fall sports season. We had a chance to cover the football team's Week 3 matchup with Canton. We were able to also see the Milford and Canton girls volleyball teams in what is always a much anticipated meeting. We covered the match at Milford High School earlier this season. It ended up being a 4-set win for the Lady Bulldogs, the Canton girls volleyball team sweeping the season series against Milford. And then, of course, having a chance to see both soccer teams today. So we've had plenty of opportunity to see all of the talented athletes from Canton throughout this fall sports season. As timeout is called for here on the field, that will stop the clock with 13 minutes and 34 seconds to go in the second half. It is still a 2-0 lead for Canton over Milford on this coverage of Milford High School girls soccer on Milford TV. Welcome back to coverage of Milford girls soccer here on Milford TV. 13.5 minutes to go. Milford Lady Scarlet Hawks, the Canton Lady Bulldogs. It's been Canton who has led all the way. Morgan McCabe scoring 2.5 minutes in. Eliza De Letizia scoring at the 11-minute mark in the first half. It's been a defensive battle since. Now, Madeline Boyle clearing it out. when these two teams met earlier in the season in Canton. That was back on October 4th. Ended up getting good contributions out of some of their younger players in particular. It was Mia Gilmore, the sophomore, who was able to score 2 goals early to establish a lead for the Lady Bulldogs. They would end up going on to win 4-0. Delatizia scored in that game as well. And Olivia Rodman scored the 4th goal in that game. But Milford with 11.5 minutes left to work with on what has been a frustrating offensive night. And Bianca Guerrero, Sarah Weber waiting to check back into the game. So some seniors getting back into this game late, hoping to have an impact. Delatizia making a good move around Ashley Starks. The shot comes in but deflected away before it got to the net. And another good defensive move by Madeline Boyle as we are about now to dip under 10 minutes to play. Here's Collins again. Frees herself from Probert. And now the centering pass. Still in deep for Delatizia. And now the hard shot and deflected. And now Milford player getting tripped up as meanwhile I think that was Sarah Weber who took that hard deflection and didn't flinch. Now this kick winds its way to Probert. Now moves it along towards Juliana France, who then deposits it over in her bench area. France and Gilmore with some contact with one another. Now McCabe with good speed. France trying to stay with her, and that shot well wide of the net and out of play as we now come down to 8 minutes left. That one deflecting off of Milford and out, resulting in another corner kick chance coming up for Canton. Sarah Collins over on the far corner. Deflected away. Now pushed up to Olivia Sullivan. Now Martin Trying to deliver it deep and now deflected out. Starks playing it back to her D. And now in trouble. And Sarah Weber with a good play now up ahead towards Probert. Juliana France gets knocked down. Now comes sliding in to try to break things up against Juliana Agniti. Probert with a nice ball upfield. But again, Canton able to close in. And now trouble here. And Annie Flanagan back to make the play as Lauren Fitzpatrick was looking to set up Morgan McCabe on what would have been her second goal of the night. Another corner kick comes in, deflected away. Looked to be Collins again, who was in on the play. Dropped back in by Canton, now out to Sullivan. Boyle stepping up. And now the shot comes in on Olivia Marshall, and she is able to make the stop. And this will take us under 5 minutes to go. Dumped back in, and now Milford trying to find a way to break it back out onto their attacking side. Probert trying to close off the angle on Collins, but Collins gets around her. Sarah Weber there in support. Now the centering pass just offline, and then the second chance effort is there for Canton to pad their lead, their third goal of the night. That goal coming in through a crowd to make it 3-0, and but in all likelihood the finishing touches on the victory here with just 4:19 to go. And now Weber getting knocked down. The fans wanted the call. No call came. And now Canton pushing the tempo again. And this shot comes in from long range, and that rolls just wide. It's Delatizia again. Madeline Boyle trying to find Cassie Probert, but that ball kicked out of play. Just over 3 minutes left to go. Soft toss into Probert, who tries to fire it up the near sideline, but it does not stay in play. Probert waiting for the toss back in now, gives way to Weber. Santa Pierce back in the game. Now dumped in deep, just shy of reaching Olivia Sullivan. Mia Gilmore trying to get around Pierce. Eventually does so. Carries it into the box, and that will deflect out of play and will result in another corner kick chance for the Lady Bulldogs. And Gilmore will take it under the 2-minute mark. And that one gets past Collins. Just about a minute left to go. As the whistle comes against Milford, and the Lady Hawks just hoping to have one last chance to get upfield, but not much time remaining. And now that ball deflected out of play. Milford will have the chance to send it up. And this one up over the head of Probert. Dumped out of play on the near side by Canton. Now the toss back in by Juliana France as Probert is pushed from behind. Juliana Agniti quick to vacate the premises afterwards. And fires up the Milford bench here in the closing seconds. And now this ball settled back down by Canton. And there is your final whistle. So a frustrating loss here on senior night for Milford as they drop this one to Canton by a final score of 3-0. 2 goals in the first half for Canton, and they're able to put one in here late to ice the victory. And so that wraps up our doubleheader coverage here for tonight. A big thank you to Mike Sperling, and I am Tim Coet. Again, that final score, one final time. Milford drops this one to the Canton Lady Bulldogs by a final score of 3-0. This has been a presentation of Milford High School Athletics here on Milford TV. So long, everybody.